Before even that, we're talking Boffin Corner. And in the blue corner today, wearing his special satin Boffin shiny shorts, it is Professor Mark Bishop, who is Professor of Cognitive Computing and Chair of the Artificial Intelligence and the Simulation of Behaviour Society. Hello, Mark.
She got it corrected. I'm the ex-chair.
Oh, the ex-chair. Do you know what? Surely once a chair, always a chair. Hello, Mark.
Hello,
Good morning to you. First of all, can you explain something? So I was looking you up quite patiently, and I found that you concentrate on things like neural networks and the investigation of the swarm intelligence, meta-heuristic, and the subfield of stochastic diffusion processes.
That's quite a mouthful, but that's vaguely correct, yeah.
Vaguely correct. What does that actually mean?
Well, when we're working in artificial intelligence, we're trying to understand how to build intelligent machines, and there are various sort of metaphors we might try and use to try and do this, to try and investigate. And one investigator that I've spent a lot of time looking at pursuing is to sort of look at the hive mind, how it is that sort of ants and termites and bees can do absolutely amazing things, even though there's not really a central controller sort of telling each individual bee or ant what it has to do. If we look at the history of artificial intelligence in the sort of 60s and 70s, you had this idea of a monolithic sort of main person, if you like, in charge, to carry on that metaphor, who has to dictate everything and has a good...
A bit like the Daleks, with the top Dalek, big old Dalek at the top.
Yeah, if you imagine that metaphor applied to the actual mind or the system, so that there's an overall controller sort of dictating how the machine's going to behave intelligently, well, this is the sort of metaphor that began to be popular in sort of the 90s, I guess, and early 2000s, was the idea that we can actually build really intelligent and robustly intelligent systems by looking at how these things, sometimes apply in nature, sometimes come through in nature, and we can do worse than look at how the social insects, like the ants and the bees, and even perhaps fish schooling and birds flocking, see what things they can do, and perhaps build systems that are inspired by that social insect metaphor. So that's been one part of sort of my academic life, by looking at a particular social insect. We looked at a species of ants called Leptothorax acervorum, and looked at how this species of
What colour are they? And are they exciting? Do they have smiley faces?
They do. I mean, one of the nice things about this particular species of ant is that when, for example, its nest is threatened and it needs to find a new site to house the colony, these ants will go out, a set of ants will wander around their local environment looking for a nice, pleasant place to live. And if one of them finds somewhere that could be suitable, it will sort of do a little partial look around, see if it looks a great place. And if he thinks that it is, pardon me, he will then run back to the original nest and literally grab one of his mates and do something called a tandem calling run and bring this other ant to go and check out that place too.
Oh, it's a bit like the disco, isn't it?
It is, but what's mad is that they do it. What they do, these two will then check out the place, and if they both think it's good, they'll run back and they'll both pick another two ants up. So now we've got 4 ants going back to that place, and if they think it's good, they'll go back.
Right. So now it's sounding like a pub crawl.
Yeah, gathering people as we go, and very rapidly these group of ants, without any sort of leader, can make a very informed decision as to whether there's any nest site. So based on that sort of way that these ants find good potential new nest sites, we then implemented a computer program that works in a very similar kind of way, and we called that stochastic diffusion search. And in fact, if you like, I can give you a metaphor to do with finding restaurants that really illustrate the computational system and the power of it very simply, if you'd like me to.
Yeah, press on.
Okay. Well, imagine that you're with a group of friends in a strange and unknown city, say Middlesbrough, where I was born, and you're trying to find somewhere nice to eat in Middlesbrough, and you don't know the town at all. Mm. And you're going to be there for a few days. You're recording a series of programs on the television every morning for a few weeks, perhaps, and you're stuck in Middlesbrough and you don't know the place. So what you might do, imagine going to Middlesbrough and you get the yellow pages out, and...
Are we talking about a long time ago, before we had a smartphone?
We are. We're talking back in the day.
Yeah, we're talking about when you had to go and find a telephone box. All right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So you've got a list of the restaurants in Middlesbrough in the yellow pages. Each of your friends has a certain list. and you get a dice out of your pocket, and if there's 40 restaurants in Middlesbrough, the dice will be numbered 1 to 40. And you roll the dice and pick the restaurant that the dice says. So if it says 37 for you, that becomes your hypothesis as the best restaurant in Middlesbrough. And your friends all do this as well. And then that night, it's not very sociable at first, because that night each of you will go out and check out the restaurant
restaurant of our choice, yeah.
Yes, each of you threw the dice and you go to that restaurant. You will then look at the menu, and you'll enumerate all the meals on the menu, say 1 to 100. And
my goodness, this is not a very fun night out, is it, really?
But what you're trying to do is, what we want to try and get to the state is that after a very short period of time, you'll all end up with the best restaurant that all of you will enjoy eating at, and then you can go there.
Oh, right, I see what you mean. Okay, I see what you mean.
So,
now,
what we do, I'll just finish off with this, okay? So you'll throw another dice, and it's got the same number of faces as there are meal options on the menu, and you'll eat that meal, and then all you've got to decide is, did I like that or not? So you go back then to your hotel, where you're all staying. Each of your friends does the same thing. And the next morning at breakfast, each of you that had a bad meal will randomly choose one of your mates and say, did you have a good meal or bad meal? And if they had a good one, you will ask them where they ate, and you will adopt that basis as your new hypothesis. If they didn't, you'll just pick one again at random. And what we've shown mathematically, if you follow this procedure through over time, over a very short period of time, actually, relatively short period of time, all of you will converge on the restaurant that's most likely to offer meals that you will all enjoy. In other words, in quotes, the best restaurant.
I tell you what, Mark, so using that, can we talk then about this Microsoft thing, about deleting a teen girl chat robot after she was introduced to Twitter and turned from this fun-loving teen girl into an evil, Hitler-loving, incestual, sex-promoting conspiracy theorist?
Exactly. Well, that's been a story close to my heart, because although I've been working in artificial intelligence for all my life, which is quite a long time now, almost half the time that AI has been a subject, I'm actually sort of known in the area as being a skeptic on what artificial intelligence is ever able to achieve. And I think my skepticism is really... it might be questioned when you get machines like AlphaGo beating the world champion at Go, and people say, we've now got machines that can beat the very best computer Go players. But it's really foregrounded when we look at the problems that Microsoft had with their machine Tay, this chatbot, which got, as you highlighted, got into some really deep water by appearing to be a racist, homophobic chatbot. And this, I'm not surprised by this, because it's part of my contention that computers, even when they appear to do really clever things, don't have a clue what they're actually doing. So, for example, the machine that was controlling the chatbot had no idea it was chatting to humans than it did controlling a rocket to Mars. Or the machine that beat the Go world champion had no more idea it was playing Go than it might have been playing Tiddlywinks. Computers don't understand the meaning of the symbols they're manipulating when they behave in apparently clever ways.
Right, so does that mean, though, but when you consider the first ever robots that we saw, and let's face it, we were all terribly excited that anything could move independently, that we had created in a way that was...
Are they moving independently? This is a really deep question that lies at the heart of this.
I'll tell you what, Mark, should we just park that one side for the moment? And what I wanted to ask was, will there come a time, do you think, when we do have the kind of robots that we see in films, like, of course, things like Terminator?
Right, well, in a nutshell, no. If we're talking of the robot like Terminator that has its own desires and wishes.
Thank goodness for that, Mark.
Its own goal-directed behaviour. Mm-hmm. However, can we imagine building a robot that might be controlled by some like James Bond, evil mastermind, who might use a fleet of these robots to wreak havoc on humanity? Yes, I can imagine robots being designed that an evil human mastermind might control and direct to do nasty things to the rest of humanity. But that's kind of a different, sort of philosophically different position than saying the robot for itself will suddenly wake up one day and decides it wants to subjugate mankind forever and a day.
Right, well, the other part is slightly scary, though, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's why I'm involved in the International Committee for Robot Arms Control, because we think that even stupid computers, what I call artificial stupidity, even computers that we have now, AIs that we have now, have the potential to wreak havoc, especially when they're linked together in quasi-autonomous weapon systems. The idea of AIs deciding for themselves when to engage in military action, what to target and how much force to use is, to me, a frankly scary issue. And in fact, this issue is actually being debated by my colleagues in ICRAC at the UN next week at the meeting at Geneva to discuss lethal autonomous weapons systems.
Just very briefly, is there anything you think we can do to stop it happening?
We absolutely, and that's why the ICRAC exists. We're sort of campaigning to try and get a moratorium on the production and use of lethal autonomous weapons systems. So you're not going to really, it's kind of similar to the Convention on the Deployment of Landmines by the UN. So we acknowledge that you're never really going to stop research into autonomous systems and weapons. These are just the realities of the world we live in. But there may be, we're arguing that there's a very strong case to try and get a moratorium on their production and use.
Thank you so much for talking to us. That is Professor Mark Bishop, who is Professor of Cognitive Computing and an ex-chair of the Artificial Intelligence and Simulation of Behaviour Society. And sitting listening to that were Oliver and Charles, who, yeah, exactly. Both of you sitting there and going, I don't know. Ollie, your thoughts?
Big stuff there. I think the big question in my mind was when you posed the Terminator scenario, end of days.
Yeah, but isn't the other scenario
still scary?
Yeah. Charles?
Absolutely.
Yeah, same. I'm kind of relieved actually that there won't be any Terminators running around. And
Yeah, but on the other hand,
yeah, it's also kind of obvious. I think humans are going to, use whatever they can to.
of course they are, even if it's just a white
Keep it
fluffy
cheery,
cat.
Charles.
Yeah, white fluffy
Keep it light.
cat. Stroking. The thing is, in those James Bond things, I never understood why they just didn't say goodbye James Bond and then just bang.
Straight
Instead of
away
like,
with the gun.
Yeah, instead of these Heath Robin-esque type things with the. But then of course it wouldn't have been quite so.
Yeah,
much.
but the film probably
So,
ended in the first 20.
exactly.
And then bludgeoned James Bond to death.
Yeah.
And the film ended.
Yeah, bye.
So, yeah.
Right, we're going to do the newspapers in just a minute.